Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company here on 440 Sports, an absolutely loaded show today. Again, like and subscribe the Stillman and Co. YouTube page. Again, we're up over 1,000 subscribers, which I thank all of you for, but we want to keep it going. So again, like and subscribe, hit that button. We love it. And we've got a loaded show. Again, this is a topic we're going to start off with today that I have wanted to talk about all week. And then former Titans general manager John Robinson will join the program at 2:35 today. So when John joins, we're going to ask him about Cam Ward. We're going to ask him about the state of the Titans. We're going to ask him about what they should do right now as far as the roster is concerned, and so on and so forth. And then we'll ask other questions about the NFL, and we'll continue on our day. So I have wanted to talk all week about something I read at paulkaharski.com. This comes from Blake Beddingfield, who is the former Titans director of college scouting. He's been writing for Paul Kaharski for years, and he usually does a Monday column and a Friday column in which he kind of gives a scouting report. So on Monday, he will give a scouting report about what happened. He'll break down the film from Sunday. And then on Friday, I believe at paulkaharski.com, he kind of gives a preview of like, hey, what matchups he's watching for, and so on and so forth. And not everything he says do I completely agree with, but this one point he made is something that I brought up on Post Game Live on Sunday, and I think this may be the best immediate decision for the Tennessee Titans to make. If we're thinking big picture, and we're not thinking about, okay, who should play right tackle if J.C. Latham is out on Sunday, but again, we're thinking big picture here. I do think those are kind of the things that I would be thinking about if I either owned the team or if I were the general manager or whatever position it is that is technically in charge of the Titans. Blake writes, quote, "I know the Titans have only played 2 weeks, but this is a rebuilding year. And during those times, you must trade assets while they are healthy and playing at a level that has value." Blake continues, quote, "My focus going forward would be to trade players that won't be producers when Cam Ward hits his prime. That is 2 years away. I'd trade L'Jarius Sneed, Jeffrey Simmons, and Calvin Ridley. I'd also look to shop Tyler Lockett, Arden Key, Draymond Jones, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Kevin Zeitler. The trade deadline isn't until November 4th. And I think he is spot on. I read that and I said, amen. That's exactly what I'm thinking. When it comes to the Titans and you've got veterans like Calvin Ridley or like Jeffrey Simmons, I have to ask, are you really getting the value out of having them on your team? Would you not be better off right now knowing that this team is ways away? Would you not be better off calling around the rest of the league and saying, hey, we're open for business around here? I actually went through and I used 2027 as kind of the year of demarcation. So we're in 2025 right now. And I used 2027 as the year of demarcation. And I said, okay, how old will players that are currently under Titans contract and will be under contract in 2027, how old are they? And here's what I came up with. Simmons will be 30. Ridley will be 33. I don't know if at 33, Ridley's going to be worth a shit, but he'll be 33. Dan Moore will be 27. L'Jarius Sneed will be 28, but with L'Jarius Sneed, that's like dog years. You know, I mean, with that knee. Lloyd Cushenberry will be 28. Cam Ward. Amani Hooker will be 27. Cody Barton will be 31. So Amani Hooker will be 30. Lloyd Cushenberry will be 30. Sneed will be 30. Excuse me, I screwed that up. I think it's spot on to start calling around the league and saying, we're open for business. And we're open for business on pretty much everybody whose name isn't Cam. Because let's say you've got your quarterback. I know there are a lot of you out there that want to say Cam is the guy, we've got the guy, Cam's going to be a superstar, let's go with Cam, he's the man, and I get it. But let's say you have your quarterback, and let's say Cam is the guy. Well, you and I both know it takes a quarterback a couple of years to pop. Some guys by year 2 are Joe Burrow, Peyton Manning, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. But again, quarterbacks still take time. I mean, here's Baker Mayfield in year 7, who has just ascended, in my opinion, into franchise quarterback territory. So let's say Cam is the guy. You know you're not going to be good this year. You need draft classes, and you need more picks. We all know you need more picks, period. You missed on the opportunity for more picks this year and next year because you wanted to take Cam, which is understandable. So understanding where you sit right now, you're going to be 3-14 again, but at least if you trade Simmons, if you trade Ridley, if you trade Pollard, if you trade a couple of these guys, then you can load up on assets. And then I really think about the core of the football team. Who is going to be a part of the core if and when this team gets good? Remember the old core for the Tennessee Titans when they went to the AFC title game and they won divisions and things like that? Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, Taylor Lewan, A.J. Brown, Jack Conklin, Ryan Tannehill, Jonnu Smith, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry. That was kind of the core group of the team. How many of those guys are currently on the Titans? Off the top of my head, right now, 3. Cam Ward, J.C. Latham, and Dan Moore Jr. Maybe Jarvis Brownlee is a 4th. Maybe Alec Io-Manor is a core piece, or Chimray DK. But I can't say right now that Alec Io-Manor is going to be a legitimate core piece of this team. I look at Io-Manor and I see a number 2 receiver at best. He doesn't have any number 1 traits. So in 2 or 3 years when this team pops, Cam, Latham, Moore, maybe Brownlee, maybe Io-Manor. That's it. And so I'd open the door for a trade on any player on this team that is not named Cam. And I'd see if any team in the league had interest. And that includes Simmons, who will be 30 years old and up for a new contract by the time you are supposed to be good again. That includes Peter Skoronski, who will be due a new contract in 2 seasons, and at the end of the day is a guard. He's a guard. And again, go back to the core pieces of the Titans in 2019. Wasn't Roger Saffold that was the difference between you being good and not? He's a guard. Skoronski's a guard. So if somebody was interested, if they were desperate for a guard, I'd be very interested in talking. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm giving away everybody. That doesn't mean that they're for free. No. There are price tags. And the reality for me with my price tags is I can set a price. I can set a 2nd-round pick price on Peter Skoronski. And you can call and ask. And if you're saying, well, we really need a guard, and he's a really good guard, but I don't think we're going to pay a 2nd, we'll offer you a 3rd, well, then you can go fuck off. And I'll keep playing with Skoronski as my guard. So I'm not worried about that. And I'm not saying that these guys that I'm interested in looking at dealing don't have value being on this team. Because once Calvin Ridley remembers how to catch the football, he will be able to help Cam Ward develop on the field. But if you can get a 2nd-round pick for Calvin Ridley, wouldn't you take it? Again, when you get a 2nd-round pick, we are talking about 4 seasons of a top 60 player. Right now, with Calvin Ridley, you've got 3 more seasons, including this season, which is already lost. So 2 seasons. So would you rather have 2 years of Calvin Ridley in his 30s or 4 years of a top 60 pick. If you can get a first for Simmons, which is what I would set the asking price at, a number 1 draft choice, wouldn't you do it? And then I think about all the other guys on the roster that I could deal. Arden Key, Sebastian Joseph Day, Chig Okonkwo, who is a free agent at the end of the year. I even think we need to talk about Roger McCreary because I think he may be able to fetch you a 2nd-round pick in return. If I can get some 4th, 5th, 6th, 7ths for guys like Sebastian Joseph Day and Chig Okonkwo, shouldn't they do that? Again, they're the ones that came out and said to you people, they said, you guys need to be patient. We need you to be patient. This is going to be a long process. Draft, develop, and retain. We need draft picks. Well, they didn't get really any extra draft picks. I know they dealt for a 3rd on the 2nd night of the draft, but they didn't really get any extra draft picks. So in order to replenish the kitty, something has to give at some point. And for me, it's competing this season because you've already got these guys and you're really not going to be able to compete this season. And then there's another reason why I think I'm ready to announce the everything but Cam must go sale. How many coaches, how many GMs, how many owners are feeling the pressure to win today? With coaches and GMs, it's about the hot seat. With owners, it's about either getting butts in seats or it's about defining their ability to be a successful owner. They feel that pressure. And how many of them can feel their season slipping away? How many times have you seen a team start the season? How many times has it been your team that has started the season that you've said, oh man, if we just had another corner, if we just had another receiver? How often? I mean, this time last year, we were sitting here saying, you don't have a right tackle. And if you could have traded for a right tackle, if you could have dealt a 2nd-round pick last year at this time to get a starting right tackle, you would have done it. So how many GMs and how many coaches are on the hot seat and can feel that need to really upgrade the roster and do it today? And I go back to dealing those picks and putting myself in the same position that the Titans were in a year ago, where they knew they didn't have a right tackle, even though they thought they were going to have a right tackle. If Rand Carthon really was in charge of the football operation, what would he have missed by dealing a 2nd-round pick? He wouldn't have gotten to use it anyways. So if you're a GM on the hot seat, what do you care if you deal a 2nd-round pick in 2027? Most of these guys probably think of it like, I won't be the GM then anyways if we don't start winning, so I better hurry up and make this deal. And then there are teams that are in Super Bowl windows who, again, might see one player that puts them over the top. The Green Bay Packers felt like Micah Parsons was the one player that put them over the top. And they went out and dealt 2 first-round draft choices, a good defensive player, and gave him a massive contract. You mean to tell me that a team like Baltimore doesn't sit back and say, man, if we could just get Jeffrey Simmons to go with Nnamdi Madubuike in our pass rushers, imagine how good we could be against a Kansas City or a Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. What about Kansas City, who can't even get a first down anymore? Would they not have interest in Calvin Ridley? But in order to do this, the Tennessee Titans are going to have to do a couple of things. They're going to have to admit to a couple of things that, for the most part, a lot of people and a lot of NFL owners are hesitant to do. The first thing you must admit to is this. Number one, the 2025 season is over. Nobody wants to admit that on September 18th. No coach wants to admit it. No general manager wants to admit it. No owner wants to admit it. If they admitted today that the season is over on September 18th, they wouldn't sell another ticket the rest of the season. And that's really hard for some businesses and owners to accept. And I get that. If they were to make that decision today, that the 2025 season is over, then Brian Callahan and his coaching staff, well, they can go ahead and call their realtors and get the houses on the market because they know they're not going to be here long. So nobody in the NFL wants to do this. You can do this in the other sports. In baseball and hockey and basketball, you can say, hey, fans, we're rebuilding this year. We're trading off a bunch of our players. We're getting prospects. We're good at the minor league level. We're worried about. You can't do that in football. And you can't do it for two reasons. Number one, there is no minor leagues for you just to say, hey, look at this prospect we have down there. And number two, if your baseball team sucks or your hockey team sucks or your basketball team sucks, you just turn it off. You just turn it off and you don't watch. Your football team is lousy. You still watch on Sunday. You still get mad when they stink, and the fan base still gets upset and embarrassed when the team loses. So that's the first thing. They would have to embrace the fact that the 2025 season is over. Number two, the second thing that they're going to have to accept if they're going to do this the right way and really tear the team down and get those assets and build for the future for when Cam Ward comes of age, Amy is going to have to pay for better picks. And what I mean by that is the high-priced guys, the Jeffrey Simmonses, the Calvin Ridleys, maybe even a guy who's making a little bit of money like an Arden Key, Tony Pollard. Most teams cannot afford to take on those contracts. The money from the owner has already been budgeted, and it has already been spent by the general manager. So if you were to trade Simmons, you'd have to pay his contract for the rest of this year. But then imagine again, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, all sitting there hearing that Jeffrey Simmons is available and the Tennessee Titans may be willing to make the deal on Jeffrey Simmons and eat the money. So you'd give up your first, but you'd get Jeffrey Simmons. You wouldn't have to pay Jeffrey Simmons any money. And you keep him from going to Kansas City or Baltimore if you're Buffalo. You keep him from going to Buffalo or the Chargers if you're Kansas City. But Amy'd have to pay. And that's a lot of money, and owners don't like paying money for players that they're not playing. But then think about all these general managers on the hot seat, all these head coaches. Think about a guy like Joe Shane, the general manager in New York. They are 0-2. They cannot play defense. Shane Bowen is their defensive coordinator. They drafted a quarterback in the first round this year. He's on the bench, which is where I think he should be. He's on the bench. And if he doesn't win this year, he's out. What do you think he gives a rat's ass about a first-round pick next year? If they don't win and they're 0-2, he's not going to make it anyways. So that's why you pick up the phone and you start calling. So that's the second thing. Pay the money. Just sit there and say to Amy, like, hey, we planned on paying all these guys all this money going into the season. And so that's what we're going to trade Simmons, and we're going to pay him this season like we were, and then we're going to go out and spend in free agency next year. And the third thing that the Titans would have to accept if they were to truly embrace rebuilding and admitting that this season is over and really looking forward to 26 and 27. And I think they're kind of doing that because of the new stadium anyways. I just don't know how Amy's going to accept the ass kickings that are going to come. But the third thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to accept that they're going to be hanging Cam Ward out there to dry this season. And that is in hope that you don't ruin him and that you'll be able to go out in free agency and add guys next season to fill in holes and load yourself with draft picks so that you can build the team around him next year with a better coaching staff. Because think about it. If you make the deal for Simmons and you make the deal for Ridley and you make the deal for Pollard and those kind of deals, well, you pay that money this year, but you're not paying that money next year. Whoever acquires Simmons, Buffalo can choose if they want to pay Simmons the money next year or not. So if you were to make that deal, then you can take the money that you're supposed to pay Jeffrey Simmons and you can go out and get 2 or 3 free agents this offseason. But you'd have to be willing to accept that Cam's going to get his ass kicked this season if you do that, if you say, hey, everything must go except for Cam. So once you accept all 3 of those realities, then I think you can start setting prices. Now, if you're not willing to do that, if you're sitting there today and you're worried about Sunday, and you're worried about Daniel Jones, and you're worried about the Colts, and you're worried about maybe we can get back into the division race, Jared, if we win this week, then you're not ready for the full-blown rebuild. The problem is the closer we get to November 4th, which is the trade deadline, the more teams are going to fall out of contention. So I want a team like the Giants to want to trade a pick for a player, again, like Simmons. But by November 4th, the Giants might not be any good. They might not be interested. And there are other teams out there who around November 4th are going to realize that they stink. And they're going to say, well, now we'll trade our players too, which may lower the prices. I'm saying in September, you call those guys who took a risk and thought they had a defensive tackle and think they can stop the run, and now they can't, and you call them and you say, do you want Jeffrey Simmons? That's what I would do. In fact, once we're all willing to give up on games like Sunday and we're all willing to give up on the season, then I am already prepared to help the Titans. I have already prepared it. What I have decided I'm going to do is I'm going to get with the Titans marketing staff, but more importantly, the football staff. And I'm going to say, guys, you do not have to pretend as if you are competing this season. Let's just call a spade a spade. After you lose to the Colts on Sunday, which I think you probably will, I'm not sure if the Titans are going to win a game. This would be one to win because that's how early season football works. But once you lose on Sunday, I've already got the commercial for you guys to put out. And we're going to put it on CBS and Fox for every contending home market or every general manager and coach on the hot seat. And we're going to put this on during their game so their fans see it and their owners see it and their GMs see it. And here's what it's going to be. It's the start of the season, and maybe your dreams of the Super Bowl are slipping away. Hi, I'm Jared Stillman. Do you feel like after 2 weeks, your team is in dire need of a solid, experienced NFL player? Or maybe you feel like you're one guy away. Or maybe somebody you thought going into the season that could play actually can't. Or maybe you're a coach or general manager on the hot seat, and you already hear calls on local radio for John Gruden to take your job. And while scouring the waiver wire and practice squad seem bleak, I have the solution for you. That's right. The Tennessee Titans are having an everything but Cam must-go sale, and you can take advantage of this once-a-season opportunity. Feel like you need a defensive lineman to better your pass rush or your run defense? A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at Jeffrey Simmons is right here for you. How about a 1,000-yard receiver to complement your number one? How about a 1,000-yard running back in each of the last 3 seasons? We've got a kicker who hasn't missed, a safety who plays 17 games a season, and more. And all of these can be yours, but quantities are limited and are sure to go fast. So get in the action by calling today, 555-TEN-TITS. That's 555-TEN-TITS. My guys are standing by the phone today. Save your season. All sales are final. Players may not be as good as advertised. In the case of Brian Callahan as a total boob, they may actually be better like Harold Landry. Call today because inventory is extremely limited. Okay, so that's what we're going to run. We're going to run that in Buffalo. We're going to run that in Kansas City. We're going to run that in Washington. We're going to run that in Detroit. We're going to run that everywhere. And we're going to say, call today. It's like Miss Cleo. Call me now. 555-TEN-TITS. Call. My guys are standing by the phone. Call Mike today. Call Chad today. They are standing by the phone right now. But in all seriousness, that is what they should do. I don't think that's what they're going to do, but I think that's what they should do. I think they need to be honest with themselves. Again, Big Joe asked them, are you going to compete for the Super Bowl? And they laughed. And it was like, well, our roster, we got to, we're going to get our roster a little bit better. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be very good. Okay, fine. Just admit it. Just admit you're going to be bad. Just admit you need a draft, develop, retain. And then start looking at guys that aren't going to either be here or be in their primes when Cam is supposed to ascend, and start trading off assets. This is what the Dolphins did in 2019 when they decided, like, hey, we're not going to be very good and we're going to tank for Tua. And goodbye, Laramie Tunsil. Goodbye, Minka Fitzpatrick. Goodbye, the players worth a crap on that roster. I don't have a problem with the Titans doing that. So that's the first thing. The second thing, before we get to John Robinson in about 10 minutes, the second thing I have is this. The prices that we are going to set on these players. Because again, if you decide in September, how many other teams around the NFL are willing to admit today that they are not any good? Like, is Cleveland willing to admit that? Is Jimmy Haslam, like, is he ready to say, you know what? Let's give up on the season? I don't know. The Giants are 0-2, but if they give up on the season, then their coach and their general manager will get fired. So I don't think they're ready to admit it. Dallas is 0-2, but you know as well as I do, Jerry is not going to admit that the season is over 3 weeks in. So how many other teams are there out there? And I don't think there are many, which is actually a good thing. That's how the NFL works. This isn't like baseball or hockey where teams tank. So the good news is that you're the only seller on the market. And when you're the only seller on the market with real pieces, I mean, Simmons is a real piece. Ridley is a real piece, although he has forgotten how to catch the ball, which is kind of annoying. Pollard is a real piece. Arden Key, McCreary, you got to decide. Are you going to re-sign McCreary? You're not going to re-sign McCreary. You're going to have to decide all that kind of stuff. So here are the prices that I would set. And again, I'm not looking to trade Peter Skoronski, but if you call me and you are desperate for a guard, I'll trade him. But it better be a second-round pick or higher. And even then, second-round pick, So here are the prices that I've set for, again, guys that I would be looking to trade. Number one, Jeffrey Simmons. And here's the price. Again, we've got until November to do this. I would want a number one and a number two for Jeffrey Simmons. That would be what I would ask. I would ask Buffalo. I would ask Kansas City. I would ask Baltimore. I would ask all of them. I would say, give me a 1 and give me a 2. Or, give me a 1 or give me 2 2s. So if a team called and said, we'll give you a 2 and 26 and a 2 and 27, I think I would make that deal. In the end, here's what I would take for Simmons. I would take 1 second and 1 third. So if Buffalo offered me a second and a third, and that was the best offer I got, I'd wait a little bit, and then I'd make the deal. At this point, I'm looking for a first, or I'm looking for 2 2s, especially knowing that a Buffalo, a Baltimore, a Kansas City is going to be picking at the end of the first round. For Calvin Ridley, the price I would set right now is a first-round pick. And the reason I would set a first-round pick for Calvin Ridley is I would say to people right now, if you could add Matthew Golden to your receiving core, would you do it? If you could add Emeka Egbuka to your receiving core, would you do it? Well, those guys are first-rounders. So in order to get that kind of player, it would require a first-rounder in return. Now, I don't think anybody's going to offer a first-rounder for Calvin Ridley. Maybe you can convince somebody, maybe there's an injury or something where somebody gets desperate. So the initial starting asking price would be a first-round pick. But in the end, I would be willing to go with a second. If somebody offered me a second for Calvin Ridley, I'd make the deal. L'Jarius Sneed. Now, I noticed that he was mentioned by Blake Beddingfield in his piece. I don't think anybody is trading for L'Jarius Sneed, but the guaranteed money pretty much runs out after this year on the Sneed deal. So as far as L'Jarius Sneed is concerned, I've set the price on him with really whatever you can get. It's not going to be a day 1 or day 2 pick, but maybe a 4th. And the other thing I'd be willing to do is I really would be willing to take 2027 picks. And boy, you better have faith if you are Chad Brinker. You better have faith if you're dealing for 2027 picks that Amy Adams Strunk isn't going to lose her shit and fire you between now and then, or else you won't get to use them. But I think you can get better 2027 picks. And if you look at 2026 and 2027 the same and say, hey, we're rebuilding, draft, develop, retain, it'll take some time. I actually think that's beneficial. Roger McCreary. Now, here's where I get on Roger McCreary, which is I would want a 2nd rounder in return for McCreary. But the decision on McCreary has to be had internally about, do we want to sign him to a contract extension or not? Now, if you've tried to sign him to a contract extension and his team has said, no, thank you, we want to hit the market at the end of the year, now we got to trade him because you're not going to franchise tag him, which is your only other option. So I would set the market for McCreary at a 2nd round pick. What I'd be willing to do is I'd be willing to take either a 3rd or a 2nd in 2027. So if somebody would offer me a 2027 2nd on McCreary and I didn't think I could get a deal done for him, then that would be the move that I would make. Now, all the other guys, Arden Key, Xavier Woods, Joseph Day, Kevin Zeitler, those to me are day 3 picks. So I can get a day 3 pick for Joseph Day, see ya. If I can get a day 3 pick for Arden Key, see ya. And those day 3 picks do add up over time. And I actually would also kind of circle the day 3 picks. I would actually circle those for 2027 because then I would go into next March with 2027 day 3 picks. And those would be trade chips that I'd be thinking about using if there were veteran players out there that might get cut, might not get cut, might. And it's like, I've got an extra 6th in next year's draft. I'll trade you for that guy. And now I've filled the need. That's what San Francisco did when they traded away Deebo Samuel. It was like, yeah, we got extra, we're going to cut you anyways. So we might as well just take a day 3 pick. So if I can get those for guys like Arden Key or Xavier Woods or Joseph Day, I'm here for it. The one in which I am totally, I wouldn't say totally unsure of, but the one that I am a little unsure of is Skoronski. I would not hesitate to move Skoronski. He's a fucking guard. Guards are not difference makers. So I would be willing to move him. I don't think you'd get a 1st. And it'd be really hard because he is a solid guard, which again is not worth the 11th pick in any draft. But he is a solid guard. So I would feel okay about it. But I still, I like, would you take a 2nd for Skoronski? I don't know if I would. But I don't see myself extending Skoronski. Again, he plays a non-meaningful position. A lot of people in the chat have asked about Tavondre Sweat. I wouldn't look to trade Tavondre Sweat, but I don't consider Tavondre Sweat to be a core piece of what the football team is going to be here in the near future because he's a run-stuffing DT. So, once again, day 3 picks for most everybody else, including Tony Pollard, who I'd take a 4th rounder for. I wouldn't take a 5th or a 6th rounder for Pollard because I do think there's value in running the football there. And then everybody else, pretty much day 3 picks, Ridley, Simmons. And the truth is, if I'm putting all these things out there and I'm saying, okay, we are selling everything right here, you're not going to get buyers at your prices for everything. But you may get a couple. And if you get a couple, again, draft, develop, retain, that adds to the ammunition. I do wonder, Indy Ben has hit the YouTube chat. Good to see Indy Ben. Says, no talk of Indy week. The Colts should be 3-0 after Sunday. Well, Ben, I actually agree with you. Indy Ben, I agree. Indianapolis should win the ball game on Sunday. So I'm not sitting here saying like the Titans are better than the Colts or anything like that. In fact, the guy that I said, hey, I'd be interested in going to go get if I were the Titans, because again, if I was a coach, I know that I might get fired. It would have been Daniel Jones. He, to me, was this year's kind of reclamation project. By the way, speaking of the reclamation project, guys, Mac Jones. Did anybody see what he did on Sunday? I mean, let's give Mac Jones his due. Okay, a lot of you people have been waiting for this today, and we'll get into some of your reaction later, but we are now joined on the program by the former general manager of the Tennessee Titans. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Robinson.
Jared, what's up? Can you hear me, buddy?
We got you. How are you?
I'm outstanding. What's going on?
Okay, I want to start right off the top with the Titans and with you. Cam Ward, what do you make of it through 2 games? Some people around here want to say franchise quarterback. Are you buying the tea?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think he's got a lot of great things going for him, right? I mean, I think if you look at when he's in the huddle and his command and the way he's passionately going through the play, I mean, I like to see that. I mean, he's enthusiastic. You know, he seems like every play is going to work for him when he calls it. I mean, the touchdown throw he made Sunday to Alec was impressive. I mean, it was out of pocket throw. He scrambled around. He did a lot of that in Miami. He's got a strong arm. I mean, he can throw fastballs. There's definitely a lot of promise there with Cam, and I think he's going to be an ascending player as he continues to grow in the league. Okay,
so today I started the show talking about draft picks and about how last year the Titans had the opportunity, reportedly, again, who knows, reportedly versus what's actually true, but reportedly they had the opportunity to trade for all those picks with the Giants to get Cam at number 1, and they chose Cam anyways. And everybody remembers the trade you made when you were general manager with the Rams. And yet you had a quarterback when you made that trade. So put yourself kind of in the shoes of the Titans at that point with Cam. Is it worth, when you've got the worst team in the league and you're picking number 1, is it worth not getting the haul that you got from the Rams trade to take the quarterback? And then how would you manufacture more picks down the road to build around the quarterback?
Yeah, that's a great question. The situation that I had when we came in, you nailed it. But we had Marcus in place, and I felt that we were more than one player away, and we needed to move back. And then we moved back up and got ourselves in position to take Jack, and then several other players, that we yielded from that draft. But if you're convicted about a player, if you're convicted, and they obviously were with Cam, that he's the guy, then you take the player, right? And if you think that he's going to be the franchise quarterback and he's going to be the player for the future, that's the hardest position in football to find, and it's the most important position in football. So if you've got the guy staring you in the face, and you've got a chance to take him, like if there's, let's just say there's hypothetically there's 2 in this year's, the 2026 draft coming up. Like if you win enough games, which kind of happened to us, it's hard to get back up in the top 10. Then you're mortgaging future draft picks to get yourself in position to get the quarterback. And like the Titans were this year, the Giants couldn't pry it away from him. There's a chance that you can't get that pick, even though like you've got enough picks to technically on paper, if you look at every trade scenario to get there, the team might not want to deal it. So, then you're sitting there and you still don't have a quarterback. So, they felt strongly about Cam, and so they took the pick.
When you watch Cam, did you see a first overall type of quarterback, a potential franchise quarterback?
He had a lot of cool traits. He did. I mean, I liked he had a lot of moxie to him. Like, I still don't know what the thing means, his little celebration thing when he throws a touchdown, but he's got some swagger to him. He's got some confidence to him. He throws a good ball. He can throw from the pocket. He can throw, the off schedule plays when he's moving to his right or to his left. He's got a lot of cool things, and, I think when you can build around him, like you're talking about, you got a chance to have something pretty special.
If you were the general manager of the Titans, would you look at your roster right now with Simmons, who, again, is under contract and is in his prime and is actually having a very productive season through 2 games? A guy like Calvin Ridley, who is probably a number 2 receiver, certainly not in that upper echelon of receivers. But would you be looking at the veteran players on your roster who are approaching 30 years old or are already 30 years old and be thinking about, okay, is it time to start dealing these guys to get picks in next year's draft?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? It's like, do you mortgage what you have currently for hypotheticals in the future? It's been widely publicized that I did that, right? And I think that you certainly have those conversations, and there's a lot of factors, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes into that. There's a lot of discussions that are had internally about players that are on your team, and if you make them available to other teams, what can you get for them? Certainly, there's probably a few players as you inch closer to the trade deadline that that may heat up. I don't know that anybody really jumps out to me that right now that you would say you would move on after week 2, right? Because when you start to move on from some of those players, other players on the roster is like, well, what are we doing? So those discussions are being had. I don't know that that's really something that teams are ready to kind of pull the trigger on right now.
Okay, so in that regard, when it comes to making those kind of decisions in 2016, did you expect that team was going to be 9-7 in 2016 when you inherited a 3-win football team?
I don't know. I knew that we wanted to get a bunch of guys in that were tough, that were going to play stylistically the way that we wanted to play football, the way that I envisioned how I wanted the team to play. And, we added guys like Ben Jones in free agency, guys like DeMarco Murray through a trade. And then we moved on from guys. I traded Dorial Green-Beckham for Dennis Kelly, and everybody wanted to run me out of town for that move. And then it ended up working out because Dennis ended up playing for us, and Dorial never really kind of took off. So you've got a way of what the vision and the types and style of player that you want on the team. And we did that in 2016, and guys bought in. Everybody talks about culture. Like, we established the culture pretty early on in 2016, and then certainly 2017 of how we were going to play. We wanted to be tough. We wanted to be physical. A lot of teams say that, but I think that we embodied that. We wanted to try to get it to the fourth quarter and then make it a street fight. And then, fortunately for us, we came away with, on the point side 9 times more than the other team.
So did you ever think early in that season, like, hey, maybe we can trade some veterans for more draft picks if we don't end up winning and being competitive at the end of the year? Or was it, hey, with Marcus at quarterback and with Kevin Byard and Taylor Lewan and some of those younger guys on the team, let's try to be as competitive as possible for those young players?
Yeah, I think for me, like when we went into that season, like I wanted to see, you look at it on tape, and then you're around the guys once you get the job, and you see how those guys interact with each other. How do they go about their daily preparation to go do their job? I wanted to get to know those guys, right? And like, we had some guys that were still playing pretty well, and we were competitive in games, and we were close. So I really wasn't ready that first season, outside of training camp when we made the move with Kelly, because we needed a third tackle. Byron Bell was going to be our third tackle, and he hurt his ankle in OTAs, and we needed another tackle. Outside of that move, like, I really wanted to kind of see how the team was going to come together. We still had some guys. There were some guys on 1-year deals, but there were some guys that had a couple years left on their deals. I want to see how it's going to come together, and then once, you pick up a win here, you pick up a win there. It's like, all right, well, maybe we got a chance. Like, I don't want to dismantle it, kind of mid-run here, if you will. And, it ended up working out for us. And then it springboarded us on to have, several winning seasons in a row.
How much did you think about the next year's draft during that season? Because you did have the Rams pick, which was going to be a high pick. It ended up being Corey Davis. But how much of it were you looking forward to? Okay, I like some of the guys I've picked this year. I like Conklin. I like Byard. I like Henry. I like some of those guys. And I got Mariota at quarterback. But next year, because it does look like the Titans are probably going to have a top pick this upcoming season. And I do wonder what that high pick is going to do for Cam.
Yeah, you're constantly, I mean, the scouts are always working a year ahead, realistically. Like, so once the 2016 draft was over, we were working on the 2017 draft and, that summer, and we were going to training camps around colleges, and you're already starting to kind of stack your board and kind of see who those premium players are. Like, who are the top 10 or 15 players, regardless of position, that, if we have traded a pick and, that team ends up having a bad season, because that plays into it too. It's like, who are you trading them to? Who's because if you're trading kind of in the back of the round, I mean, if you're picking 28, 29, 30, that's essentially, I mean, it's a first round pick. You get the 5th year option, but it's really second roundish, if you will. So you're looking at that, but yeah, you're definitely looking ahead to the next year's draft, the crop of players that are going to be available. What are the needs of our team? Like, whose contracts are expiring? Who might we move on from? Can we replace those guys via the draft? Does it look like we've got some guys positioned up there to kind of fill those spots, or we're going to have to spend some money in free agency and go target guys that way?
So if you were running the Titans, would you be thinking about next season, or would you be at
I don't run the Titans anymore, Jared.
Have you ever thought about the next season, 2 games into a season?
That was always a little early for me.
And
that was always a little early for me.
I do wonder how many general managers around the league, like I was talking about Joe Shane in New York, and I'm like, I'd call him right now, because does he even look at his picks next year and think, like, I'll be using those picks because they're 0-2. The owner has kind of put him on the hot seat. And so I'm wondering, like, if I'm the Titans, I pick up the phone and I call Joe Shane and I say, hey, would you have any interest in any of my veteran players? Would he be looking at it thinking like, well, you know what? Screw my future draft picks, because I probably won't use them if we don't start winning anyways. That's what I would want to do.
Yeah, it's like when you're selling a house and there's a leak underneath, and if they're not going to get it inspected, like, you just let it ride. Like, you're not going to fix it. So maybe, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm good friends with Joe, and I mean, hopefully they get it turned around up there. But to your point, they better get going pretty quick.
What do you see when it comes to Cam that would make you, if you were just evaluating him and you were saying, okay, here's what I like, here's what I'd like to see next for a young quarterback, what would it be?
Yeah, I think his again, I've never met him, just kind of watched him from afar. It looks like his leadership traits and his ability to kind of rally his teammates, like, it looks like he's off to a really great start there. I mean, I love that about him, and that's an important part of the quarterback position. I think he's got plenty of arm strength, and he can stretch the field. He physically can make all the throws. I think some of the timing routes and the ability to layer throws over coverage, sometimes you got to take a little bit off of it to get it over a linebacker or get it over a hang safety to try to drop it in there. Like, you don't have to drive everything. There's a little bit of a touch and feel with some of those throws. Not everything has to be on a rope. So just continuing to work on those components of his game. But, I love the arm talent. I love the mobility. I don't necessarily say he's a runner per se, and I don't want to compare him to Patrick, over in Kansas City, but Patrick can make kind of some of those off-platform, off-schedule throws and altering arm angles, much like Cam, and Cam can kind of do some of those same things.
So what would you be looking for from him to take the next step?
Again, those things, just continuing to work on. It's a new cast of characters, right? Like, he's never really thrown to these guys in a live game setting. He's had 2 weeks to throw to his core receivers in a live setting. So continuing to kind of get on the same page with those guys, know that if the guy's supposed to be, if he's got a cut split and he's supposed to be, he's sticking the top of his route at 15, and I'm letting the ball go before he turns around, developing that trust with those pass catchers to let it ride. And the pass catcher's got to do his job. If he's got to turn around, if he's got to stick it at 15 and come back to 13, well, then that's his job. Like, I got to let it go when he gets to 15 and he got to turn around. So just continuing those relationships and that timing with his pass catchers.
I have one more on the Titans for you. Titans fans are freaking out about the offensive line. They've spent a lot, both in the draft and in free agency, on the offensive line. I remember in 2019 when Taylor Lewan was suspended and Roger Saffold had been signed, and the offensive line, and Nate Davis got hurt, and the offensive line struggled at the beginning of the season. By the end of the season, it was probably one of the better offensive lines in the league. You rebuilt the offensive line in 2016, whether it was claiming Josh Klein off of waivers or drafting Jack Conklin or signing Ben Jones. I do not believe that it is fair to judge an O-line coach or an offensive line through 2 games, because I don't think they get to practice anymore. I mean, we don't wear pads as often. We don't have 2-a-days. We barely play in the preseason. I think offensive line is about communication, cohesion, physicality, and the only way to get those things done is to play. So I am giving them some leeway there. Is it fair to judge an offensive line in today's NFL in 2 games?
Yeah, I think you make a great point, Jared. The most important thing about the offensive line is those 5 guys playing in sync with each other, right? You're only as strong as the weakest link. Not to use that analogy, but defenses are going to find out where the weak link is in your offensive line, and they're going to try to exploit it. So it's not necessarily having 5 Pro Bowlers up there. I mean, I remember when we were in New England, we had Matt Light. We won a lot of Super Bowls with guys like Matt Light, Logan Mankins, Danny Copen, Stephen Neal, Sebastian Vollmer. I think Logan Logan's a great player. Mankins was a great player. Matt Light may have been to 1 Pro Bowl, but like the other 3 guys they were good, solid players. And they worked they worked together as a group. They were all on the same page communication-wise. They knew where they were supposed to be. I think one thing that I was on a call yesterday, kind of a league call with a bunch of guys that are out, and Mike Martz was on the call, the old coach. And he brought up a point about pass protections and the carryover from the college game and how it's kind of transcended into the pro game. So it sparked a thought on me, and I did a little research. So in 2006, when PFF started tracking pass protections, 50% of the pass protections were 5-man protections, which is just the 5 offensive linemen blocking. And the other 50% were 6-man plus. So the backs involved, the tight ends involved, whatever it may be. So 50-50. In 2023 and to date, in 2020, 2023, and it's on track in 2025, it's more 70-30. So 70% of the pass protections are just those 5 guys blocking with no real help from a running back or a tight end. So it went from 50-50 to now 70-30, which is really what you see in the college game. So more onus has been put on offensive linemen to block those defensive ends, defensive tackles, and those guys have gotten bigger, faster, stronger, and they're not giving them any help. Right. And Mike made the point yesterday. It just seems like we've kind of, and I'm not saying you got to go back and run the wishbone. I'm not trying to say that. But like, if you can give the quarterback some help with protections by changing it up a little bit so that teams don't know that if you're only blocking 5 guys, well, they're going to scheme up something to block 5 guys, to beat your 5 guys blocking. It's like the philosophy has changed from, hey, let's make the defense guess because we're 50-50 to, let's get more guys out en route so the quarterback has more guys to throw the ball to. Well, if the quarterback's getting hit, he can't throw the ball. So there's got to be kind of a common ground there. I found it interesting as I kind of dove into the stats there, just about the shift in the amount of people deployed as pass catchers versus the amount of people, that were kept at the line of scrimmage to try to protect the guy throwing the ball.
John Robinson's with us. I want to hit through some just GM thoughts with you. Number 1, where are you on Arch Manning? There was so much hype going into that Ohio State game, and he did not meet that hype. And his last name is Manning, and he's huge. And sometimes when I see him throw the ball in warmups, it looks like I'm watching Peyton, with the mannerisms. But at the same time, wasn't very good, and they haven't been very good in the 2 games since. Where are you on Arch?
Yeah, it's off to a rough start, right? I mean, I do think there's a lot of ability there. I mean, he hadn't played a whole lot, and it's like, and unfortunately, that's where we're at. As a society, it's like we're in this microwave mode, right, where you just want to put it in there, bake it, and come out, and you've got a T-bone steak and mashed potatoes. Like, it takes time to play the position, and it takes live game reps. You can look great at practice, when the defensive line is rushing half speed, 3/4 speed, whatever it may be. But like, he just needs to play. I think all the tools are there. I think he's got a ton of upside. He just got to play more, He just got to play more. But I would agree with you. Right now, it's not looking too sporty.
Tonight, we have Thursday Night Football, Dolphins and Bills. It looks like Miami is headed for what may be another reset button. It feels like it's a disaster as far as the coach is concerned there. Some of the personnel decisions they've made, not very good. Who knows about Tua? What do you make of the Dolphins and how bad they've been and where they're headed?
Yeah, I know Chris Greer down there very well. He's a good friend of mine. But listen, it happens, right? And you're right. It doesn't look too good. Like I don't know when the press conference was when Mike got up there and said, you got to win the game. You can't lose the game, and you're trying to move the ball to try to win the game. And I was like, what is this gibberish? So it's, and they got a tough one tonight. It's in Buffalo, Jared?
Yes.
Yeah. So it looks like it's probably going to be 0-3.
Buffalo is 11.5 point favorite.
Yeah, that may be light. I'm not a gambler, but like, it may be light. But it's not. It's there's been better times in Miami. I don't think the 72 team has got anything to worry about.
What do you think of Vrabel in New England?
Yeah, I mean, they dropped one early, and then they've got it going. They got it going down there in Miami. It looked like there was a punt return that I think New England ran. Miami ran a punt return back, and then New England ran a kickoff return back. So it was a little bit of a special teams back and forth there. Listen, he's got the way he's going to coach it. Smart, tough, dependable, know what to do, play fast and aggressive. I'm sure he's using all the same, kind of lingo he did here. I think he's a hell of a football coach. Wish him nothing but the best up there. Got a good young quarterback, looks like.
So put yourself in the shoes of Cincinnati. And you just got the owner to pay all that money to keep Trey Hendrickson. You've paid all that money for Chase and Higgins, and Joe Burrow's making a bunch of money. And for what feels like the third, fourth season in a row, Joe Burrow's hurt again. Again, kind of a freak deal here with the turf toe injury, but he's going to be out for 3 months. That's pretty much the entire season. Are you on the phone trying to get another quarterback in there? Are you going to say, hey, we ride with Jake Browning? Or do you just bury yourself in a hole? What do you do?
I would probably go with option 3, just find the closest hole and bury myself. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's out. Your season's probably toast. I would say it's 85% roasted. Unless, the year that Brady got hurt early in the season and Matt Castle came in, we actually won 11 games. Matt did a great job, and we still didn't make the playoffs. So, maybe they catch lightning in a bottle with Jake, but, you lost – arguably the best. I think he's the best quarterback in the pro game. If not, he's certainly in the top 3. And you're right. You've allocated a lot of resources to pass catchers. The offensive line hadn't been good. It hasn't been good. And you suffice Trey Hendrickson by trying to. Everybody was on. Well, they don't do it in Shamar, the pass rusher. He held out, so they finally kind of came and got it all together. And now your quarterback. So you're done. You're done.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I don't know exactly what's your definition of franchise quarterback?
That's a great question. I think he embodies everything. I came up in New England. I was around the best who I think ever played the game in Tom. And his ability to make decisions. First, you've got to get the offense in the right play, right? The coordinator or the head coach, whoever calls the plays, they send the play in, and there's usually one play, maybe 2, and then there's a can. So you've got a pre-snap ID, right? So when you come to the line, you're going with the main play, and you're using your cadence, you're using motions, you're using shifts to try to move the defense around and get a tell to see what the defense is going to do. Once you think you have an idea of what the defense is going to do, you either keep the play on if it's going to work, or you change the play and get yourself into a play that you think will work. All right. And then once you do that, you got to get the snap, you got to find the open receiver, and you got to deliver an accurate ball. And you got to make good decisions with the football, taking care of the football, being accurate, making good decisions. And then there's a leadership component in there too, right? I mean, when you step into the huddle and call a play, if you don't call it with some piss and vinegar, and it's 3rd and 7, and you're in the whatever, you're playing for the playoffs or you're playing for the Super Bowl. If you go in there and it's want, like, how are you going to get your teammates to stand in there and block for you or get somebody to go open? I mean, that's one thing I love about Cam. Like, he's passionate. It looks like he's passionate when he calls plays. So the teammates believe in that guy. So you got to have a component of that. And at the end of the day, it's about winning, right? I mean, you can have all the stats you want, but like if you don't produce wins, then it's hard to say that you're a franchise guy.
So I feel like Baker Mayfield crossed the Rubicon on Monday night. His tackles were out going up against the 3rd pick in the draft on one edge and a $19 million guy on the other edge. His special teams tried to give away the game with a punt block and a punt return, and he gets the ball, 2-minute drill, and Emeka Ibuka drops the ball on 3rd and 10, and Baker scrambles on 4th and 10, picks up 15, moves him right down the field, scores a touchdown. It really felt like he put the team on his back. I know he's had his ups and downs, Cleveland and Carolina and the Rams, but I do think Baker Mayfield, it's taken him a while. I think he's officially a franchise quarterback. Monday night was kind of the moment for me where I'm like, no, he's no longer in that kind of middle tier group. He's more towards the top. Do you agree with that assessment?
I 100% agree with that. And I mean, you named them. Like, there's a lot of teams that told that guy no, right? They said, no, you're not good enough. And like, he finally got the opportunity and he landed with a team that it just clicked. And sometimes it takes a while, especially for that position. But I think he's gritty. I think he's accurate. I think he's tough as nails. I 100% agree that he is a franchise quarterback, and Jason's got himself a good one down there.
Okay, I have 3, I don't want to call them revisionist history questions, but 3 rear view mirror questions, if I may. Number 1, you already brought up the DGB Dennis Kelly trade, which, by the way, people were very, very upset with, but ended up being a pretty good trade. The day before you made that trade, you spoke at the Rotary Club, or the whatever it was club.
Holy smokes.
Do you remember that?
No.
I remember you said that when you learned that being a general manager was when you had to measure the size of your desk drawers or something. And I was like, man, this is really interesting. But
no, I think I said you generally manage a lot of stuff.
And then you talked about the size of your desk drawers. And you and Floyd talked at that Rotary, for 5 minutes, maybe not even that. Floyd went on the air that day and just trashed DGB. Did you give him a heads up that you were going to trade Dorial Green Beckham? Because he trashed him, and he never did that when he was on the air.
I did not. I love Floyd. Sally's awesome. I didn't tip off. I mean, I usually held the cards pretty close to the vest, Jared.
I mean, he trashed him. So then he foreshadowed it perfectly. Number 2, was Tom Brady ever a possibility in 2020? You go to the AFC title game with Ryan Tannehill. You beat Tom Brady on the way to the AFC title game with Ryan Tannehill. But then there was the question of, where's Brady going to go? The Titans constantly mentioned. You ended up re-signing Tannehill. Was Tom Brady ever a possibility during that offseason?
I think somebody, maybe in you, like even said you had like a tail number on a helicopter or something that he was on, and he was flying over NBA or.
So I actually got suspended. The one time that I got suspended in the 10 years that I was on the radio station, I got suspended for calling the Predators head coach Baldy. I got suspended for the 2 days that all went down, where they said that Brady and Giselle were touring NBA. So that had nothing to do with me.
Well, again, you're looking at all the players, right? But that year, if you go back and look at the numbers, like Tannehill had the highest QBR rating of all the quarterbacks. He outplayed every quarterback in pro football that year. And listen, like, Tom's a great quarterback. I'm glad we had Tannehill. I'm glad we re-signed Tannehill. He's a great dude. I think he's an outstanding player. So no, we didn't. I mean, you talk about all the players, but like at the end of the day, it was Tannehill.
Okay, and then last one for you. Actually, I have one more after this. I'm sorry. When people ask you what happened with Marcus, what is your answer? Because if you thought, and I'm sure you did all your homework on Marcus because the year before you guys had the number 1 pick and you drafted Jameis Winston and Marcus was in the, if you thought Marcus was absolutely awful, I don't think you would have taken the job, even though there are only 32 of these and you only get so many. So when and plus all the moves you made leading up to that looked like you believed in Marcus. So when somebody says what happened with Marcus, what was the lesson you learned from that?
Well, we were constantly trying to improve the backup position. Like if you think about what we did, like, so we signed Cass and like Cass was great for us. And then we signed Gabbert and we were trying to get, just a little younger, maybe you have to run around a little bit. And we thought Blaine gave us that. And then we traded for Tannehill. I think with Marcus, he was a captain. I mean, he embodied the captain stuff, right? Everything that you're looking for in a captain, he embodied that. I think he broke his ankle the first year, and then it was just an injury thing, right? It's just like he just kept getting injured, and it's hard to build a team around who you think is going to be your franchise, because he played 1 year in the league, right? And I knew we were going to need to run the ball. We were going to need to fix the offensive line. We were going to need to run the football. Right, the quarterback's best friend is an offensive line and being able to run the football, because it takes a lot of pressure. Because now you're bringing more guys into the box to try to stop whoever you're going to hand it off to, which at the time was DeMarco and Derek, and it loosens up the coverage. So the quarterback has bigger windows to throw the ball, and guys have more space to get open. So that was our intent when we went in, and then he just kind of got the injury bug, and it was like, continue to try to build around, but he gets hurt, and then you go into the off season, you try to go around, and then he gets hurt. And then, the Denver game, it wasn't good. And, I think we were 0 to start the season. And it was like, we just try to change something up and get a spark. And Tannehill came in and sparked us. And I think that's the year we ran to the AFC Championship game.
Okay, the last one I do want to know, and this is such a nerdy question from me, but I've thought about this for years.
You're not nerdy, Jared. Don't degrade yourself.
I think a lot of people forget this, but right before the COVID shutdowns and the free agency and everything, there was an option. The CBA had not been agreed to, and there was an option for 2 tags. So you could have used a franchise tag and a transition tag. In a normal offseason, you can just use 1 tag, either a franchise tag or the much less used transition tag. Were you going to use the 2 tags on Conklin and Henry prior to the NFL, like the day before free agency opening up, saying you only get 1 tag, which you used on Derrick Henry?
Was that? Oh, so that was the 19 season.
After the 19, yes.
Yeah. So Tannehill was up and Derrick was up.
Yes, and Conklin.
And Jack was up. No, the intent was to extend Tannehill. And I mean, we tried on Jack. We just couldn't come to kind of an agreement on the comp. And but those 3 guys were at the top of the heap, right? It was Derek, and we had a lot of guys, but it was Derek, it was Tannehill, Jack, and then we weren't going to use the 2 tags. It was try to get long-term deals. The Derek one took longer than it should have. But we were able to extend both Ryan and Derek on long-term deals.
The YouTube chat is saying, why no AJ questions? You've already been asked the AJ question. You've already
answered 1,000,000 times, Jared.
How much do you get asked about AJ just day to day?
Oh, I don't really see anybody. So it didn't really come up. I mean, I don't live in that hole we talked about earlier, but like, it's not like I'm walking around, Whole Foods or Target or something. And somebody walks up to me and is like, tell me about that AJ Brown trade. That doesn't really happen.
I mean, I always talk about moves like that, and I'm like, man, I favored the move because I believed in the Patriot way back then, and I thought that was a Patriot way. That was a Lawyer Malloy out, Rodney Harrison in move, and it didn't work. And I always feel like, the thing about those jobs is if those moves don't work, then when you make that kind of move, hey, this is a big swing, and if it doesn't work, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, you could be on Stillman and Company from your home office.
There you go.
During the season.
John Robinson, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, that was a Floyd Reese. I'm not in ball anymore, but I still can coach it as always. J-Rob, thank you so much for your time, buddy. Take care of yourself.
Great to see you, brother.
Yep, John Robinson joining us on the program here on Stillman and Company. Are you happy, YouTube chat, that we asked about, the A.J. Brown thing? He's already answered that. So that to me is not that. I found it fascinating when I asked him about a franchise quarterback. I don't know if you guys found this fascinating. I found this fascinating when it came to the franchise quarterback question about how he was talking about, hey, you got to say it with some real shit when you're inside that huddle and you're sitting there giving a play call on 3rd and 7, and this is for the divisional round of the playoffs. And I never really thought about it like that. About, hey, you better have that confidence. We all say, hey, quarterbacks need confidence. But we never really talk about it like, man, how's he going to do that? How's he going to so on and so forth? I also did find it fascinating. I thought they were going to use both tags. And again, I'm the only person in the world that still sits here 5 years later and ponders, would they have used the 2 tags? But that is something that I do wonder. Okay, Thursday night football is tonight. It's the beginning of the football week. Oh, thank God. I don't know about you guys. I've been the last couple of days, I've been sitting here thinking Tuesday night, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to watch on TV today? So thank God that it is time for Thursday night football, which of course means it's time for our Thursday sermon. If I may here on the Stillman and Company program, preach on our Thursday night sermon. Number 1, I feel as if it's time to admit defeat on my claim that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the National Football League. Not that I don't think Joe Burrow is that perfect combination of talent, poise, leadership, championship, whatever you want to call it, but he just can't stay healthy. First it was the knee, then it was the elbow, then it was the calf, then it was the hand, now it's the toe. It kind of reminds me of the nursery rhymes that my son watches on Super Simple Songs, where they start going through each body part in a row. At this point, as much as I hate it, Joe Burrow is injury prone. That's just a fact. And you can't be the best quarterback in the NFL, better than Mahomes or better than Josh Allen, if you're consistently injury prone. Can I get an amen? Number 2, it's getting late early in Chicago for Caleb Williams. Man, I will say this. When it comes to Cam Ward, he is lucky that he doesn't have the media attention that Caleb Williams has on him in Chicago. But I'm going to also say maybe we should just wait for more than 2 games in the second season before we just decide Caleb Williams isn't any good. Caleb Williams is super talented. And I mean super talented. And while his personality is not exactly my cup of tea, I do feel pretty safe in opining that Caleb is not a finished product 19 games into his career at 24 years old. Be patient, Chicago. Give Caleb a real shot. Can I get an amen? Could Kevin O'Connell be the latest coach who got himself in trouble, not by being a bad coach, but by smelling his own farts? O'Connell, a quarterback guru, was sold that J.J. McCarthy was going to be so good that he punted on Sam Darnold, his then 27-year-old MVP candidate who won 14 games last year. Why would Kevin O'Connell think such a thing? Because Kevin O'Connell probably believed that he was the reason that Sam Darnold was successful and that he would be the reason that J.J. McCarthy will end up in the Hall of Fame. Right now, J.J. has played 1 good quarter of football through 2 games. Justin Jefferson is not getting the football. And Carson Wentz is going to be starting at quarterback. And I know you people can hate Sam Darnold all you want, but he's absolutely better than Carson Wentz. Can I get an amen? And how about Mac Jones in San Francisco? Mac Jones brought in to be the backup because everybody just assumes that Mac Jones sucks. Last Sunday, Mac Jones was 26 of 39 for 279 and 3 touchdowns. Yes, it was the Saints. But Kyle Shanahan made a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I feel bad for Mac Jones, and I'm going to tell you why. I feel bad for Mac Jones because he made the playoffs and a Pro Bowl his rookie year, and by year 3, everyone just assumed that he was the problem. But does Mac not get any benefit of the doubt, given the fact that Bill Belichick made a defensive coordinator Mac Jones's OC? And Belichick, outside of that season, has made a complete and total fool of himself. And yet nobody thinks maybe Belichick set Mac Jones up to fail. Let's see how he does with Shanahan. Can I get an amen? And finally, they're getting restless in Houston, where CJ Stroud, I guess, hasn't ascended into the quarterback that they thought he would be. Stop me if you've heard this story before. Young quarterback has success. Team thinks they're Super Bowl contenders. They're not as good as everybody thinks. And then they blame the offensive coordinator. That's right. Bobby Slowick got the boot last year. And now people are starting to blame CJ Stroud. Here's what I'll say to Houston Texan fans who may be upset about CJ Stroud or were thinking that by now he was going to be Patrick Mahomes. If you don't want CJ Stroud, I'll take CJ Stroud. I can tell you right now, and I was not high on Stroud coming out, CJ Stroud is not the problem in Houston. Maybe the problem was the fact that DeMeco Ryans and his defense couldn't get a stop at the end of the game. Again, half the league, if not more, would take CJ Stroud in a heartbeat. And maybe CJ's not a franchise guy, an elite quarterback right now, but he will be. Be patient. Or not, Houston. Go fuck yourselves. If you guys think that's your fault. Can I get an amen? And that is our Thursday sermon. That's it for us today. Thursday night football tonight. I'm going Bills in a blowout. So I will take the 11.5, just like J-Rob said. That's it for us. Again, thanks to J-Rob for coming on the program. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So really enjoyed having J-Rob on here. Thank you all for tuning in today. Tomorrow, we will actually talk about the Colts game. That's right, here on the program. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Get them to like. Get them to subscribe. Like and subscribe. Again, the podcast will be up momentarily, and we will see you all tomorrow live right here on YouTube at 2 o'clock. Stillman and Company, 440 Sports.